You figured it out. Yay.
Can't hear Sybil.
It's okay. She pressed record. She's
Okay.
muted, but
Yeah, I just started recording, but I'm keeping my mic on mute, so people don't hear me saying, "Thanks for the fucking beer, Kathy."
so the COVID-19 task force has been meeting once a week, and what we're doing now is adapting the Dane County Public Health Department's recommendations for WORT. We're customizing them for the WORT situation, and we're keeping an eye on the COVID tracking and making sure that we're doing everything in a safe way. We're not ready to open up, and we don't have any idea of when that will be. We're looking for the number of new cases to be in a downward trend for 2 weeks, and we're not there yet. So there's a lot that people have been learning about the whole COVID-19 issue, including how it's being transmitted and what things we have to do. So the latest information seems to be that the primary mode of transmission of COVID-19 is through air. And so we don't have to totally deep clean the station every 6 hours or anything like that. So we will still be wiping things down. Tom Jones, who's our IT director and facilities director, is getting some information from General Heating and Air Conditioning about how often our air is exchanged with outside air, and about new ways we can put filtering in to filter out particles in the air, and other methods of cleaning, like UV light or ion cleaning. So, but we don't have that information yet. People are doing a fantastic job. I'm going to put Sybil on the spot and ask her, do you have any idea of how many people are now producing their shows from home, Sybil?
Probably about 67.
Okay.
So
That's-
I mean, maybe 5 or 6 people who are not.
That's good. One of the questions that Elizabeth Delaquest has asked, which is a valid question, is, are there people who aren't producing their shows from home now and doing that because they don't have the resources to do that? For example, a computer or a microphone or good internet service. So if there are any of you out there who are on this call who are not producing your show live on recordings from home, who would be interested in doing that, please let me know. You can either speak up here now or send me an email later. Can I put you on the spot, Rockin' John?
Yeah. I have no computer, no internet service, and no cable, no nothing, period. Mm-hmm. So,
would you be interested in giving it a try if we could get those things for you?
Well, wouldn't I have to have some kind of internet service to do it here?
Yep, you'd have to have internet service, you'd have to have a computer and a microphone and software on the computer and training on how to use it.
Mm.
A lot of things you'd need, but the question is, we can pursue that if it's worth pursuing. But even if you were given those resources, if you weren't interested in trying, then we won't try. So.
Yeah, I would have to get a cable hookup and.
Right.
Yeah, I got rid of cable years ago because I got tired of paying for stuff I never watched. So, yeah.
I would ask the question, though, do you really need cable service to do this? Because you could create shows at home, transfer them to a flash drive and drop them at the station.
Yes, Art suggested that Art was kind of garbled there. You could produce a show at home without having internet service, record and put it on, copy it to a flash drive, and then drop the flash drive off at the station, or have somebody drop by and pick it up and drop it off at the station. So all you need then is a computer.
Well, I don't know how I do that.
Yep. And the other thing is how would you get your music in a form that you can use on the computer? So Art, when you do a show,
you're talking to a total computer illiterate here.
Right. Well, I'm not trying to force the issue. I'm just trying to see if there are obstacles that we can get beyond, if that's a possibility. So. Art, oh, go ahead, John.
Well, he's my partner, my grandkid's partner. He said something about even recording my voice tracks on a remote, one of these portable tape recorders, and then playing the tunes on my boombox. And he would go on the net and get all the songs off the net, but that sounds like a hell of a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, he's a sound guy. He's out of work for the summer, so.
Yeah, it's a different way of doing a show, that's for sure. Hang on, John. Let me ask Art another question. Art, when you're doing your show, do you digitize from vinyl at your house, or do you use pre-digitized songs?
I digitize most of my songs. You know, I don't use any. I don't have a capability to do that, but I do use digital CDs.
Okay.
Some MP3s.
Okay. Interesting.
I guess another question though is it possible for a few people to do shows at the station that would be pre-recorded at the station?
That's certainly something to consider.
I mean, we wouldn't need to have a lot of people doing that, and I would think the traffic could be pretty low for that, but it would be a lot easier probably for some people to do that if they're willing to do that.
So let me go back to Rockin' John here for a minute. John, if it was possible for you to come into the station to record your show, even though very few people would be in there, would you be interested and willing to do that? I think John is muted at this point.
Yep. He is muted.
I don't know how to unmute John, but
I don't know if you can, but it's making a lot of noise on the call.
okay. I think only he can unmute himself at this point. And does anybody remember the star code to unmute?
*6.
Thank you. Rockin' John, can you press *6 to unmute your microphone?
Hey, I unmuted myself.
You did. You did indeed.
You are better at technology than we think.
Yeah, I'd be willing to do that if someone, I don't know what the procedure would be, but because I know we're kind of an automatic pilot for a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's the case. Well, that's something that I will bring to the COVID-19 task force to discuss. So I muted Kathy to stop some of the noise that's coming in from her microphone. So Kathy, if you want to talk, you have to unmute.
Are you talking to Catherine Hovland?
I am indeed.
It is on mute, and the reception has been breaking up. But if you can hear me, I hope you can. I live next to 4 teachers. They're having a hell of a time with connectivity, and they have Spectrum, okay?
Yep.
I'll turn it off now again. It was
Okay.
up.
Yep. Thanks. Well, that's one case. Anybody else on the call who's not producing a show from home, not right now, who would be interested in getting some assistance to be able to do that? If you are, you have to unmute your microphone to be able to talk.
Well, I don't know, looking at the list of people who are on the call, if there's anything else in the situation, but I believe that the best alternative for Rockland John and people who cannot stay at home would be to allow them in education under those limited circumstances. And also, I'm quoting from the chat that is happening is Arlene saying, when you said at the beginning, air transmission is a big issue. So our air quality and air exchanges have to be addressed, and then look at allowing people limited access if they cannot come home.
It's really hard to understand you, Sybil. It's so garbled that most people can't understand it.
I'm
Well, I
sorry.
think Sybil here, maybe I can speak because Sybil was saying a little bit of what I was chatting. So for those of you on am I making distortion too?
No.
Okay.
It looks like it's coming back through you somehow when people are talking.
Okay. Well, I had chatted about the air exchange issues. I think that that's one of the first things that we should do for who is in the building now, whoever comes into the building now, as well as whoever we slowly start bringing into the building. We don't know how many air exchanges per hour we have right now, and a minimum is 4 air exchanges per hour. What they say is safe. And usually most hospitals have about 6 air exchanges per hour. So I know we're working on that. I know the engineering folks are working on that, as Dave said at the beginning of the meeting. And so I think that following Dane County, Madison Public Health guidelines and being ready when, working on that now so that we're ready when we can start to reopen, I think is really smart. So anybody else who wants to give their feedback, I'm sure WORT I would appreciate it on the COVID task force. And as soon as we can get some of the air exchange stuff done, I think would be important.
Can you hear me now all right? Hello?
The mic is still garbled, Sybil.
Okay.
It's okay. And Dave, I muted you, by the way.
Well, while we're waiting, is somebody waiting for something? I can talk about some of the policies that Dane County Madison has put forth that we're working on. We're working on a hygiene policy, basically washing hands, coughing and sneeze etiquette, don't touch your face. We're working on a cleaning policy. what is works, Tom is working on what we can clean our electronics with. How often should we be cleaning? An illness policy. So like if you've been exposed, you can't come. You have to verify to us that you don't think you've been exposed. You haven't been in a place that where you've had an exposure. You can't come in sick. So things like that, real common sense things. These Dane County Madison Public Health guidelines, I think, are really doable. As soon as we're ready, I think that WORT can do it. Then there's another policy called protective measures. So things like if we are going to have a receptionist, you've seen that, I'm sure, at places you've gone, like should we put up some kind of plexiglass so when people walk in, there's a barrier there. So I think some of these things are really doable, and I think WORT will be able to do them. And I keep saying when we're ready, I think we'll be able to do it.
Thank you very much, Arlene. FRP, Tom Jones is working on getting a quote about the ion error filtering technique.
And Frank, do you have any connections about that? Do you know anything about that? Somebody told me that they thought UW Hospital had that system. Is anybody on the call that has connections to engineering at UW Hospital that could verify that or get some recommendations or some questions about their experience with it, if it's working for them or not? That would be helpful.
FRP, there are people who question that high kill rate on the viruses. I think that's on the air that's going through the ductwork, that may be true, but it depends on how many air exchanges you have in an hour and things like that. So
From what Jen was telling me, the data that they have right now is from SARS a couple of years ago. They're still working on getting the data for the current SARS-19, the COVID-19 virus. But they're similar enough that they're pretty sure it's going to work about the same way. So the biggest issue right now is General getting the information from their supplier for the ionization system and then relaying it to us. And then, since it's a hot topic right now, actually getting a hold of some of the units to install. So a lot of this is still up in the air.
looking at Heidi's question, are there small steps that could be taken to get the people who can't record at home back into the station if they are comfortable? And is the station exploring those? Yes, we are. Thank you for the question. Are there other comments from the call attendees? Questions?
Hello.
Go
Yes.
ahead.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
All right. What I said before was simply that for people like Rock and John, for whatever reason, they cannot record at home. It seems as though allowing them in the studio on a limited basis under all these protocols that we're planning to put in place. I've got to echo. I'm sorry. It's making me hard to talk because of the recording. And the air quality issues. And if they are interested and willing to do it, they should be able to come in and do their shows live. And this is, again, not through the busy time of day where there's staff and other people around, but you know, who else is going to be there besides Rock and John on Saturday night? You know, some of the late night, early morning folks. That's what I'm suggesting.
Thanks, Sybil. Thanks, Heidi. Other comments or questions?
Well, a question for Sybil. Sybil, should somebody who's coming in have to have a COVID test and a negative determination before they come in?
Well, I don't know if I'm the right person to answer that, but I would say that, you know, when you have a test, you don't get an answer for a number of days. And then, what exposure might you have between that time? I mean, there just isn't really a great way to prove that someone doesn't have COVID and isn't infectious by giving them a test before they come to one specific place.
So what are we going to do when the 6 o'clock host wants to come in and the 8 o'clock host wants to come in and the 10 o'clock host wants to come in, and they're all going to be in the same contained space over a period of succeeding hours? And
we
no
don't
one
want
goes,
that to happen.
I'm sorry?
We wouldn't want that to happen.
Yeah, but what you just said was the opening the door for that to happen. So how do we stop that from happening once we say that if you want to do your show from the station, you can do your show from the station?
That's not what I said. I said for people who did not have the ability to do it any other way. So for example, the 8 a.m. hosts are doing their shows via phone, including their guests. And also I mentioned
but
pardon me?
They're no longer doing it by phone, but sorry.
Okay. But they're not coming into the station to do it. And then during business hours, there's staff and other traffic there. So I was recommending not doing it during the regular business days. So another thing is that we can alternate between studios. And so there's some time between the times that people would come into the studio. But it's not going to be based on, well, I want to come in and do my show now. I cannot produce shows from home. I have not been able to produce shows from home. That's who I'm talking about.
So Sybil, how, based on what we're currently doing in terms of producing from home, how many people are we talking about that might need to come in? And would they be people that mainly would be coming in at night, or? And I guess another point would be, you wouldn't need to produce them live. They could be recorded at the station and dropped into the queue, right?
That's also true. If someone wanted to come in to record a show when there was nobody else there, or very few people there, they could do that. And then it could be played later on if they were not able to record at home. So I'm only talking about maybe half a dozen people that do a show fairly regularly, because there are a few people that do them like once a month or the 5th week of the month. So not as concerned about them.
From a news talk perspective, we've got about 2 shows where they would really benefit from coming in. One not producing programming anymore, and one morning buzz host whose wireless connection, like we've worked with Ethernet cables and different software, and it's just too slow to support it, especially at that hour. Seems to be bottled up. So, I mean, yeah, and the other would be on a Sunday. So.
Well, that's good information. Thank you very much. Are there any other issues to discuss in this meeting?
Yeah, I was wondering about. Oh
Go
yeah,
ahead.
Dave. I'm wondering about the big 2-week pledge drive. I'm sure we're going to be dealing with this stuff when that's going on. But these 2-weekers, they're big ones, and I'm guessing we won't have any live programming during the upcoming pledge drive. So, just wondering what the goals are, and I guess the last one was pretty successful.
Susan is not on the call, so I can't ask her. I can talk or ask Tom to talk about the phone system a little bit. If I can put you on the spot, Tom.
Oh, sure. The phone system does not support routing calls externally. An upgrade that we're trying to go for can do that, but there's no way we're going to get that installed before the next pledge drive. So we're pretty much going to be doing this the same way as we did the last pledge drive. And that's going to be mostly staff handling the phones and really pushing for online donations. It works pretty well to do it that way. And, you know, the larger pledge drive for 2 weeks might be a little more intense, but I know Susan's getting some plans together to be able to pull this off. But yeah, you're right. Live programming isn't really going to be a thing either.
Okay, thank you.
Are there other questions or comments from volunteers?
I would like to know if there's going to be access to digital music files.
That's something that I'll bring up for the next engineering committee meeting coming up in a week, I think, with Tom. It may be possible, but I'm not sure how that would be used yet.
I can answer part of that. We can open it up to be accessible from the outside. The problem is if we do it directly from the digital library server, that's a hole through our firewall for anybody to gain access to. There'll be usernames and passwords obviously on it, but the bad guys can hack through that pretty readily. The other option is to set up virtual private networks into our internal networks for people who need access to it. Again, it's having to open the security holes that we have to work through to be able to do that. And it would take some configuration on people's personal systems from home to gain access to the VPN to be able to do that. It's all doable, but it's something that we should proceed cautiously with.
Tom, I was
Yep.
thinking that what about using Google Drive or Dropbox, and I could share specific music with specific people, and it would be in there for, say, a week, and then I would take it down and put more music in there. Some promoters are fine with doing that. Other music promoters might not be happy with too much distribution, but it's either allowing people to do that and saying, you know, you can't sell this or post it all online, or their music doesn't get played at all. So I want to explore using Google Drive or Dropbox, whichever, so many people are already using. And I experimented with that a little bit with Heidi and Psychoacoustics, and it seemed to work out pretty okay. So that's a thought.
That's doable. It'd be better probably if it was automated because there'd be a lot less transferring of files, which is obviously time consuming, depending on the number of hosts that would need access to that. So,
Well, it's different time. It's using our time in a different way than we used to, Aaron and I. But for example, I would set up on the Dropbox folders for different genres of music and just pop stuff in there. And some of the promoters are making it easy by sharing through Dropbox anyway. And then it would be up every week. We'd send out a notice, a list like we used to, and then we would delete the files after a week and put fresh ones in there. So that was my thought, and it being a private Dropbox that you have to be invited to, but doesn't require any other VPN setup or anything like that. So
okay, that's totally doable then. The other thing is our digital library is not all inclusive. I mean, it's got like 8 terabytes worth of music in there, but it's certainly not our entire CD library by any means.
people could ask for specific things that they want, and I would be
Yep.
we would try to fulfill that.
Yep.
That's something that we can look at in terms of access to online music files that we can use for broadcast purposes. But I don't know the answer to those questions right now. It is possible to set up a VPN, but it requires a lot of support. Somebody has to talk to each individual volunteer, and I don't know what the user interface is to the digital music library. I don't know if people can browse based on artists or songs or whatever. So
it's pretty slick. It's using a program called Subsonic, and yeah, you can search. You can look by genre. You can look by artist, and it works pretty well. Considering we've put very little time into actually setting it up in the first place, other than getting the music there to begin with.
thank you. Other questions from our attendees? Sybil, regarding your question about the comments you added to the coming out of COVID-19 document, I don't think that's available yet to the committee, but Tom is working on that, so that should be ready in a day or two. So thank you. Thanks, Tom. Other comments, questions? Jonathan Zaroff, that one spot to make it easy for us to access is a hard thing to do, because every promoter, every record company would want it to be different and would have different conditions.
I had another. Oh, that's horrible audio. Don't bother. Too bad. Does that sound as bad to all you as it sounds to me?
I muted and that makes it better, so I will mute again.
So this is just a very general area that I would like to think about how we could improve in different ways. There's so little feedback now for our shows, or at least for me. Like, I used to do my show and then I go to the co-op and somebody'd say, I enjoyed your interview about X. But now I don't see anybody anywhere. And like a lot of times I'll do a show, and other than the crew that's on there, you know, it's just the way it is. I just don't hear anything about it. And so it makes it a little hard to tell like what's working and what's not working, or even to like have the same energy for it if if it all just goes off into the ether and never bounces back. So I don't know what we can do. Like, sometimes the shows are posted. I suppose I could look at the numbers, you know, people that listen. But anything we could do to sort of like increase that feedback loop would be really great. So it's a really general thought.
Hey, Jonathan, so we do have a Google voicemail box, and that goes to the general news account, and I do get feedback on Other shows, they don't give it out, but I think if hosts gave out the how to call in, that might be a way if people want to leave you a message. I had set up another one for COVID. We stopped running promos for it because I got a lot of conspiracy theorists and not a lot of other folks. But I could change the greeting and just say, like, if you want to leave feedback for a host, and then I could put in a clause in there that says, like, if you can consent to this being broadcast, because you have to get consent if people leave you you can't just play voicemails on air. But I think if you had it if I had it in the greeting message, like, we could even play them on the air, right? Or if Dano called or someone and confirmed with them, that might be an interesting way to, like, foster some community.
And I'd like to be able to get feedback even from people who don't want to be recorded.
Okay, yeah.
Because
I could just open up.
Folks who
I
don't
could
wanna
change the voicemail box to be, instead of COVID, it could be like feedback on shows, and then I could email out that information. Would that be for you to say on the show? And then if listeners wanted to call in, I still get random emails about whatever show and whatever. Someone asked me for happier news yesterday, and I was like, I don't really know what to tell you. We've done a couple. And I try to pass those on, but we can try to deliberately solicit that feedback. Good point. You also post on Facebook, right? Sorry, you also post on Facebook, right?
Intermittently, but somebody just wrote, I just lost track of that comment, that when they promote their show, they also get feedback. That's an excellent point, because then you've let people know and there's a spot for them to go, like, oh yeah, I saw what was happening. I listened to it. Now I'm going to say what I thought of it. That makes a lot of sense to me. So I should probably do that more often.
Thank you. Also, the Spinitron listings allow you to do live chat. And even though news programs haven't traditionally done Spinitron because they are not music programs, we can still do an entry on.
Yes, it's the expectation that news programs do it. Some choose not to, but.
Okay. What I'm trying to say is people can give feedback using the Spinitron chat technology. Also, Jonathan, if you're on other social media, you can give your social media IDs to get feedback that way. Another call for other comments, please. Anybody else?
Well, I guess I would ask, as for news, I think some info went out when we first went to remote and broadcasting from home, or not just broadcasting, but doing stuff at home. I think some info went out at first, but now that we've been doing this for a while, I think what would help me is kind of a checklist of things like, what do you need to produce good features and good shows from home? What do you need to be able to go live? I don't know how to do that. I don't think our show knows how to do that. We've been recording it like the day before and then dropping it in. But we don't know how to go live. I don't. So things like that might be some helpful tips for those of us who are doing news. That would be, now that we've been doing this for a while.
The shows that go live have asked to do so. And I'd be the one running the board, and then I send them info on how to do it. So if her turn is interested, let me know.
Well, here's the thing though, Charlie, this is what I was trying to explain. I don't even know all the options. And maybe there are a lot of us news volunteers who don't even know all the options. I don't even know if that was an option for us. So maybe just something to go out that would tell us some of that stuff.
Separate from the programming your show from home, which
All
has that
together.
info in there.
Yeah, no, all together, like all the things that you think would make good news, a good news show now that we're all doing it from our homes. Things that maybe we hadn't thought of, things that would make our shows better, more timely, just ideas from you. Like, I don't even, like when you say if Her Turn wants to do it, I don't even know if we want to do it because I don't know what's involved in it. So, you know, that's kind of information would be helpful to me.
Okay, part of that information is in that doc that was sent out. But I will make a checklist of options and send it out in the next week.
This is Boss Lady. I have a question.
Yes, please, go ahead.
I'm just wondering, maybe not just a question, but a comment. If there's some people that are having trouble recording from home, but they can still compile their show for the most part, putting the music and things together, but it's that actual talking portion that they can't get in as far as, you know, doing the station IDs or things like that. I know that on our in the spots area, there's a station IDs folder, but when I was clicking on them before, and I apologize if it's different now, but when I looked before, there's some station IDs, but it's for the ones I saw were hosts giving a station ID for their own show. So is it something that would benefit the rest of, you know, those that are having trouble if the ones that could record, like say for example, I can record, but you know, someone on another program is saying I can't do a microphone, it's too difficult. Is it something that would be beneficial for me to even say, do a drop for someone else's show and say, you know, this is Boss Lady, I'm on Universal Soul Explosion every Saturday night. You're now tuned in to so-and-so Tuesdays afternoons at such and such, where we kind of cross promote each other, or that we could kind of help that process out. Is that something that would be needed, or because I'm willing to do that if you think that's needed, or if anybody else needs assistance, I would be willing to do that.
I think that's a great idea. I think that promotes other programs, and in general, for all shows, that would be a good idea. And it would make the ID process sound interesting and different. That would be something you'd coordinate with Sybil, but I'm sure that can be done.
Great, thank you. And if anyone needs anything specific, feel free to reach out to me. I'm open.
Thank you. Other comments from the people in the call? Be sure to unmute. Other comments and questions? You have to unmute if you want to talk, because otherwise we won't hear you. Well, I think we can wrap up our call then. One final call out there for anybody who wants to make a closing comment.
Well, I'd just like to say it's great hearing the voices of other WORT people. It's been 4 months since I've heard somebody, so I've talked to Sybil and Art, and that's been about it. So it's great hearing everybody on this call.
I agree. Well, I think we can wrap it up then. Thank you very much, everybody who called in and who made comments. We do have a recording, and we will have a recording of all the comments that people made as well. So thank you very much. And don't hesitate to send email between these calls to people who might be able to help you, like Sybil and Shally and me and anybody, and Tom. So thank you very much for everybody.
Dave.
Thanks. Bye-bye, everybody.